Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. I hope you're having a great day today. Welcome to the show. I am a life and business transformational success coach, and I'm so excited today that we are going to give you some verbal caffeine to light you up with possibilities, because today on our show we have Michael Klein. Unbelievable individual. He is a Master RIM Facilitator, a Canfield Trainer, a Barrett Values Consultant, and a Transformational Retreat Leader. Michael was the 11th of 12 children. We'll put a pin in that. I want to go back to that. Born into poverty on their alcoholic father's junkyard. After losing his mother at age 7 and being adopted by emotionally abusive relatives, he discovered resourcefulness surpasses resources. Now, a six-time successful entrepreneur, Michael is on a mission to help others create their best lives. Commitment and committed to personal growth and answering the call to be the fire. As a teacher and human, he recently invested in a transformational retreat center in Costa Rica. It's absolutely gorgeous, and co-founded the Retreats Leaders Academy, a master of creating safe and sacred spaces with love, connection, and fun. Mike serves as senior trainer at the RIM Institute, having taught the RIM method to over 140 coaches and therapists, and he lives in Sarasota with his husband, Sal, for 34 years now. Congratulations on that. And their spoiled labradoodle, Luke. Good for that. Welcome to the show, Michael. You are a dream. I adore you. You know that. And I'm sure your labradoodle Luke is spoiled, because you just spoil everybody who comes in contact with you.
And he may join us. One never knows. And I don't have any control over those things.
That's absolutely fine. Everyone is welcomed on this show. So that's a good thing. My Lassapoo may join us. So we just never know when she decides to use her voice. So we just kind of roll with it. But quite the story. 12 siblings, and you're the 11th. What is that like? I'm on a 4, and it's like, whoo.
Well, we just got back from a 4-day family reunion weekend. So this just 2 days ago. So I'm still in recovery from being with a bunch of them, and a whole bunch of nieces and nephews and all of that. So yeah, I don't know what that's like, really. It's just, it's bizarre. I'm right? Being on the younger end. It's like, it's not like really growing up with 12 children, because we grew up over a 20-year span.
Yeah.
But it's always fascinating to dip into family and learn. And I'm still learning from this weekend, asking questions. And I met a first cousin that I'd never met before.
Oh, that's
one of my siblings found on, I think through Facebook. But it's interesting. She showed up with lots of family pictures. Our grandparents are the same people. And so they had family albums with a lot of family history and filling in pieces for me. So it's always fascinating. Yeah. And enjoyable enough and stirring enough, and all the things that family can be.
Yeah, without a doubt. My 2 brothers were 4. I'm the youngest of 4. We were 5. My 5th sister, the 5th one, she passed. She was the 5th child. She passed October 5th. It was 5:55 when she passed, and she lived for 5 hours. So I was like, there was a lot of 5s when I discovered that. And a couple years ago, for some reason, I decided to pull her certificate, because all I heard was there was some kind of respiratory issue. That's all I heard. And all I remembered as a child. And I looked into that. When I saw all the 5s, it was perfect, because at that point I was investigating angel numbers and having all those numbers, the recurring numbers. And it's very interesting and points to a lot. But my older brothers are 10 years older than me. So I had that spread. It was almost like, my sister and I were the only kids, because they were already out of the house by the time I really recognized that they were even brothers, other than annoying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I realized in retrospect, having 7 older brothers, and being that the olders were sort of raising the youngers when I was one of the youngest, I realized basically I was raised by a pack of teenage boys. What could possibly go wrong?
That's a good equation.
That's right. Anyway, but somehow we all survived, and happily everyone's all the better for it. So
Yeah, and you're just an amazing human, and I love being around you. Every time I get to be
uh,
around you, I'm just like, it's just happiness for me, and it's just, you always make me better. You make the people around you better, always, always, always. So I thank you for that, and you're such a light. So if no one has told you that, and I'm sure many have, you're a light force to be reckoned with. But I mentioned something in your intro. What does it mean to be the fire?
so there was a long journey to get me to what that means and to accept that from a place of humility and fight with that idea out of ego. And so the short version of it is that to me, it means to be the neutral witness in holding space. So fire is without judgment. I realize I can put something into the fire and fire will burn it. It'll transmute it into ash and smoke, and it won't say, why did you burn that?
Yeah.
It won't judge what I gave up. It won't judge me for not putting something in the fire if I want to hold on to it. My original experience with this was actually around a big piece of fear that I wanted to let go of. And I was in conversation with a literal fire, and we had a long dialogue. It lasted for long dialogues last a long time. This went on for, I think, 4 or 5 nights in a row. Wow. Where I was debating with it, arguing with it. And I realized how neutral fire is and how powerful it is and how simple it is. And it still needs to be fed. It still dies out. Not all fire, just that fire. And so it's sort of like the easier metaphor might be like being a drop of water. If we take a drop out of the ocean, it's still, here's ocean. We could put it in our hand and see it. This is ocean.
Yeah.
And it's one with the ocean. We put it back in the ocean. It's not a separate drop that compares itself to all the other drops and answers to some great hierarchical, patriarch somewhere in the deep of the ocean that has more power than everyone else. There's none of that. It's just ocean. And it's the same with fire. So I get to be fire, and I can develop that. I don't have to compare myself to the sun or a smoldering cigarette butt. We get to be fire. And my role in my work, I would say, is to be neutral, the neutral witness. And you can bring me your suffering, and I'm here to help you transmute it, and I don't have any judgment around it, and I don't have to. You can keep it. You can give it up. It's up to you. And sometimes I'm the center, and people gather around in places like here in our retreat center, where that's the attraction. And sometimes it's my job to be quiet and sit in the corner and just be a source of warmth and safety. So that I aspire to be all of that on a good day.
Well, that's a beautiful explanation. And when you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, it's so true. A fire is still powerful and hot, even if it's an ember, so it's just different states of fire, and it is non-judgmental. You just have to let it go. And that's when I think we're genuinely ourselves, and all our success codes are inside anyway, when we're diving deep and we're not worrying about what anybody else thinks, because it's none of our business anyway. But if we're really going to be who we're meant to be, we got to dive into our own fire, right? Our own ember, and light that up. So that's beautiful. So I know one thing you're so good at, and you're so good at so many things, but creating that safe and sacred space. But how does that differ from what we're used to in like training environments and at events and stuff like that? I know creating space, because I do it myself at my retreats, and in my classes, is creating that space is important to allow people to feel comfortable and safe to come out and be who they are, raw. So how does that differ?
Well, I know you know this, and I know we got to meet when I was teaching this, right? When it was a workshop that you're
so much fun in your workshops. Okay, I never laugh so much. You're fun, but it's so deep, so all at the same time, and you remember everything because it is so much fun, and you have fun doing it, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I think maybe that's part of it. That if we can laugh while creating safe and sacred spaces, that makes it more comfortable. That's a piece of the equation, or at least a piece of my equation, is to be to laugh at myself, to laugh at the situations, and to know that we're okay here. So often when we say safe and sacred, people think that means really serious.
Right.
And well, what if we were safe enough to have fun and laugh there?
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a relatively conservative, not relatively, in a conservative Catholic religious upbringing, and I think about as a kid, what I thought was serious and safe or sacred was strictly serious. It's like there's no laughing, there's no joy, there's no fun here. And just this last weekend, looking at old family photos, I thought, wow, throughout history, has anyone ever had any joy? And I noticed in a few photos where people were having fun and being playful. And I started thinking about our perspective of what things look like. Well, of course maybe they're just looking serious because they had to look formal for a photo, because people weren't running around in the 1940s with an iPhone taking pictures. So they put on your Sunday best. It's a big deal to get your picture taken, look serious, all of that. So maybe we throw meaning onto things that we don't really know is true.
Yeah.
And in a safe and sacred space or setting, part of it is a setting. Look at this building. This is a special place. You walk in, you feel the goosebumps, the energy's there. And when we go into that space, have you ever been told by a retreat leader or a facilitator in a meeting where they say, now this is a safe place? You ever hear the leader say that?
Yeah.
To me, that says this is not really that safe.
Yes.
If you have to say it, it's not quite there. That you can't tell me that I should decide to trust. I have to. Trust is built through experience. And I think safety is trust, that I will feel safe when I feel safe. And my nervous system might know that when I walk into the place. I might notice it when I meet you. I might notice it by the energy of the people around me. And I think the key is it has to be demonstrated.
And I was going to say that one
often sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that's exactly what you do. And what I love about it too is you demonstrate it in a fun way, but you're showing your vulnerability. It's like, okay, I'm going to be silly now. And I had that same experience, Catholic, very conservative, very strict house growing up. And so, I had to be serious in business for my first 20 years in business. I was always serious because I needed to be taken serious, and I wasn't fun. And I wasn't connecting because it was just like, too much. And then when I started being this many, my 5-year-old that I am inside, I was connecting with more people because I was being more who I was and having fun and doing joy. It didn't take away from the intellect. It didn't take away from my expertise in whatever the subject matter was. It actually created a space that allowed people to comfortably come towards me, as opposed to go, yikes, repelling. So I love that about you, because I know in all the exercises we went through together, you did these fun things and you put yourself, and I was observing this because I kind of multitask when I'm in classes like that, which we're supposed to do, right? I'm observing how you're doing it, and I'm wondering why you're doing it, trying to figure that out and experiencing it at the same time. And I did notice your vulnerability, but sheer joy while you were doing it. And it was like, it's okay. I'm okay with this because I'm okay with myself and I'm comfortable in myself. And so I'm going to be silly right now. The paper plate exercise cracks me up. I was like, I am not a draw. You put a paper plate on top of your head and you try to draw the person that you're looking at. I mean, that's hysterical. And I still have my paper plate of my squiggles that is supposed to represent who I am. And I'm like, I'm squiggles. That's good. I'm good with that.
I love it. Yeah, we have to. We learn when we're laughing, we're learning.
Yeah.
And we're only laughing if we're feeling safe. So let's just experience that and allow it. And it's not for everyone. So we have to tiptoe into that, right? We tiptoe into that. We can't tell people to have fun. We can't tell someone to relax. I mean, you can, it's just not going to do any good. It might even repel. And so, I think the safe and sacred is an experience. I think that, asking everyone to share, to have their voice in the circle sounds lovely and terrifying to many people.
Yes.
Like they'll run for the hills. I have no interest in sharing in the circle. So how do we build that gently and easily? How do we really claim our space at the circle? Yes. And so that it's in a way that we get to declare it, and there's nothing expected or required of us, or nothing that could be judged, and everyone gets to move at their own pace.
Right.
And it's like my least favorite thing as a participant is to do icebreakers.
Oh, me too.
I roll my eyes. My stomach turns. It's like I have no interest in doing this. I don't mind inflicting it on others, but I know I'm very good at that. And I think I'm good at that because I dislike it so much when it's being done to me. And it's usually done, one of the things that I think are done poorly. And it's probably the most important thing to do well. So I love teaching.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. When you're doing that, you're so right. When I'm at events and they go, okay, now we're going to do an icebreaker. First, they announce it, and my stomach goes, "Rrr," and I don't want to play. I just don't want to play. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
this is a good time for me to go to the ladies' room because I don't want to do this,
exactly.
And so I try to find excuses, right? Justifiable excuses. Well, I have to go to the ladies' room, right? But the reality is when you do the icebreakers, it's really an exercise that helps people relax, and it's, you don't announce it as such, you just go like, let's have fun,
Yeah.
let's just jump into this. But you start with yourself, you use yourself as an example. One of the things I noticed about what you do, especially with RIM, and I had a session with you which was just magical, just amazing. There are common types of healings that show up in your work. So what are those common healings that you see in your work? Because I notice mine shifting. I see people shifting, and it's so beautiful to see.
Hmm. It's physical and it's emotional, and it's both. Sometimes people will identify, well, no, this is about emotional healing, or they'll say this is about physical healing, and I don't. I have a hard time. I would have a hard time separating the two. And so this morning I had a client who was really dealing with chronic pain. Her doctor, she's had for about a year. Her doctors have said it's kind of nothing except it hurts, right? There's not a physical thing there. And so managing it is a challenge. And she's been doing a lot of mindset work, meditation, mindfulness, that sort of thing. And we're studying how the brain reacts to pain and all of that. And so we just moved into it. Now, if I said, well, let's move into the pain, that would sound awful.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Scary. It sounds scary.
yeah, it sounds scary. It's like, who wants to do that?
Yeah, right.
Or even if I said move into an emotion, move into that deepest part of your rage or your anger, that would be almost impossible for most people. And so we're thinking about it. And the research shows that we can change, we can shift and change and regenerate these images that pop up in our memory and in our body. That's what RIM stands for, regenerating images in memory. But you have to be in it, not talking about it. Talking about it doesn't change anything.
Right.
Science says you have to be in it. And when you can be in it, well, how do you do that if it's so scary or it's so intangible?
Yeah.
And so that's what we do. So we leverage body awareness combined with spontaneous imagination, that we can move into something. So if that pain had a size, shape, color, texture, temperature, whatever, something to make it a tangible, something in your imagination, then we can move into it. So that may sound familiar to you, and I know your audience, as somatic coaching or somatic therapy. Right. And we just handle it a little differently. Like there's an intention behind giving that form, because once we move into it, we can use spontaneous imagination will do it for you. You don't have to think of anything. It's not imagining is not a verb. It's a third party that shows up with spontaneous things, and the client says, well, this is really strange, but, and whatever's coming next is key. They don't know where that came from, but this thing came up, or this shape, or this size, or this color, whatever it is, because now we have something we can safely move into. And now we can do the work that needs doing there, so that dis-ease in the body can dissipate naturally. And it will. Emotions stuck in the body will dissipate on their own if we weren't afraid of them.
The coolest thing that I've learned of late is our body doesn't know time. So it doesn't know it happens when you were 5 or when it happened yesterday or today. So if it's just addressing it, acknowledging it. And I always say when I'm working with clients is we first have to recognize stuff and acknowledge it, have awareness of it. And then we can choose whether or not we want to do something with it or not. Sometimes we like to stay stuck. That's okay. Whatever your choice is okay, because it's your choice. But it's becoming aware, and that awareness of where you're holding it in your body, that what that mass feels like, what that shape feels like. If it has a shape, is it, does it have a kind of a geometric shape, or is it just random, like an amoeba or something like that? I love the thought that, that happens. And the other thing that I learned, and I think I might have learned it from you actually, Michael, because you're so smart, is our cells hold all this emotion. It holds it forever, all of our cells. That's why dis-ease occurs, is because our cells are holding it. Now it's morphing it and doesn't know what to do with it. And it's like, what do we do with this? So we have to change those thoughts so it can release, so it doesn't grow into something bigger, meaning emotional and or physical, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of science on the cellular memory and how that works. And so, but you hit the nail on the head when you said when we are in choice. So we're always in choice, like suffering is a choice.
Yes.
And yet there are people right now bristling saying, well, you don't know my suffering. And that's true, I don't. And I do know that when the reason it feels like we don't have a choice is it's not in conscious awareness, it's not something tangible, and our thinking mind can't manage it, doesn't know how to do that. We can't talk ourselves out of feeling bad. We've tried.
Yeah.
We can dip beneath the surface. We can dip beneath logic so that we can dissolve the root cause of the pain. We don't have to talk about the pain or worry about the pain. We can dissolve it. It'll happen naturally. Yeah, there are other techniques that do this. They're just not as, it's like you can sit in silent meditation for 10 days or maybe 30. And you can get to this. And what I learned in those practices is that now this is what the Buddha was teaching 2,500 years ago. You can't think your way out of an intangible emotion, but you can sense in your body and allow it to dissipate on its own. You can do the same thing by drugging your thinking mind. You can do ayahuasca or psilocybin or other plant medicines that will, kind of annihilate. And sorry, are you hearing that thunder?
Yes.
It's really loud here. I don't know if it's picking up through my microphone a lot or not.
A little bit.
But we can turn it off and bypass it. And there are other techniques that try to do that. And with RIM, we partner with the thinking brain. So you're always in charge. You can't do it wrong. You don't have to think of anything. You don't have to be good at imagining anything. We step into a place where your thinking mind is not in charge, but it's in the passenger seat.
Yeah, without a doubt. Oh my gosh, we need to speak more about this. So you're listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. We're going to take a short break. We're going to come back with Michael Klein. You can find him at michaeljklein.com, KLINE.com. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. If you would like to be a guest or lift up your not-for-profit, your business, your product, or if you have a question or comment, email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. We'd love to answer you. You know, I answer all of those emails personally. Look forward to chatting with you. So here we are today, really giving that verbal caffeine a run for its money with Michael Klein, talking about this magical thing he does called RIM. And I actually experienced going through a session of RIM, which really dug back down into something deep for me that definitely caused a little disruption for a couple of weeks for me because there was shifting going on. And I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that now. And but now I'm on the other side. It's just amazing. I wrote a chapter in a book, Women Who Dream. My listeners know about that, Women Who Dream. And my chapter was called Two Choices. And we were just talking about it's a choice. We have choices. We have only two choices. If you get down to it, take all the emotions out of it, it's either yes or no, stop or go, forward or backwards, stuck or unstuck, any opposite like that. It's the yin and yang of life. So when you just look at life like that, we have a choice. Even if you're in a dire situation, which some of our listeners may be in, they have a choice to make a movement, or they have a choice to stay exactly where they are. I know before I made my huge transformation, I had to make a choice. Either I was going to blow everything up, or I was going to stay stuck where I was. And for a while, I was stuck, and I was having the happy little pity poor me party, and I was enjoying it. And then I got tired of it. I was bored, and I was like, all right, let's do this. And I shook everything up. Those were my choices, right? And while I was stuck, it was perfectly okay for me to be there. That's where I was supposed to be. But going through the RIM process, it took something that some people have been in talk therapy for years, decades in some cases. Going through the RIM process, it was just like click. It was like somebody flipped a switch when I went through the whole process. And that one thing, it became aware. Once I became aware, I had a choice, and I made that choice. Talk us through that process and how you would compare RIM 2, and I know this sounds strange, but the title of this episode is Psychedelic Level Transformation Without Drugs. How is it like so psychedelic? How does that happen? How do you get that feeling?
Magic.
Magic, yes, I love it. Great answer. Because you're so
There is
wonderful.
some magic to it. Dr. Deb's first book, Dr. Deb Sandell is the creator of the RIM method, or discoverer of the RIM method. Her first book was entitled Releasing the Inner Magician, which is also good, fits the acronym RIM. And so there is a lot of magic to it that we can tap into, that anyone can. And so I would say when you close your eyes and turn inward, you can just become aware of what you're sensing in your body. And so we'll use that inner sensing, and you begin with the guided facilitation allows you to just start using anything that shows up. It might be a pain or a physical sensation. It could be colors. It could be nothing. If your answer is nothing, I'm not good at this, that's perfect. And we follow that and follow that and follow that as the facilitator. And it just is used as a portal into what's beneath the logic. It's a way of dipping out of the thinking brain and down into the body memory. And then you say, well, this is really weird, but Aunt Betty just showed up. Real person, so we won't talk about her too terribly much. And so that's strange. I haven't thought about her in decades, and there she is, right? Wow. And so it might go into something, and we find more resourcing. So like psychedelics, people come to this for emotional healing, trauma healing. They come to this for expanded creativity or innovation. It's very entrepreneurial that way, very creative. It might be something we do in writers' retreats or creativity conferences like I did just a couple of weeks ago. And here's the thing, when we get in there, inside, we have access to all that is. All the wisdom, all the love, all the support, all the healing, all the memory, all the things that we don't have in our thinking mind available to us for healing. So we have access to that to expand what's possible for us. That includes healing trauma. That includes healing intergenerational trauma or inherited memories, or past lives, whatever it is. And you don't have to have any belief system about any of that, nor do I. The body has access to that. So we tap into that. Whatever it is that's needed will come forth. You don't have to know what the issue is. I don't have to know what the issue is, because then we're working on what our very limited thinking brain has access to. And the thing is never the thing. And you know that. I think most people know that by now. What I talk about is not, there's always an underlying something. How do I find out what it is? We got to dip beneath. We must dip beneath the thinking logic. Beneath the logic lies the answers.
The way I like to frame it, to just simplify it, because it's so magical, that everything that you said is like, yeah, I absolutely understand. But for someone who hasn't gone through it, the best way to explain it is, have you ever just thought of somebody like Aunt Betty, and all of a sudden Aunt Betty calls? It's just something that came into your thought process. It almost feels like that. And then you start working on that. Because I know when I went into my RIM session with you, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to work on today. And so we just went in, and boom, this big thing came up, because one, I was open to it, but also I was just listening. And as you guided me through, you guided me into what I refer to as the room in my brain, in my body, that needed the attention. So it's really important to be guided. And then once you learn how to do it, you can actually self-guide yourself. But I always like to have somebody there, because they take you in gently and out gently. I know I had done a session of, it had to be a year ago in October with Deborah, and I popped myself right out. I came right out, and I got dizzy. I literally got dizzy. I was like, what the heck is that? She's like, no, you're not supposed to be out yet. I didn't take you out. And I'm like, oh, did not know. So it's pretty interesting. So it is very psychedelic. It is, you get a little dizzy, and because you're doing this inner work that's just so beautiful. How do you use, because I know you're a coach, you're a trainer, how do you use RIM in your work?
So most of my work is teaching this. I realize that people are always asking, well, who should learn this? I say, well, emotionally brave coaches learn this. I mean, you don't have to be a coach or a therapist or a teacher. There's a lot of people that want to work with deeper emotional work with people. So emotionally brave coaches. So teaching RIM and teaching safe and sacred spaces for retreat leaders, healers, coaches, therapists, etc., is what I mostly do. My individual clients are often referred by those same types of folks who have clients that want to go deeper or do something bigger. And oftentimes it's healing, physical or emotional healing. And sometimes it's just creatives looking to go further. And what was the question? How might I use it? So what I find mostly,
your work.
yeah. So when we're in conversation and something keeps coming back up, this is what a lot of my coach students will say. They'll have a client where, how do they know when to use RIM? Is when the client's repeating the same story or issue keeps coming back. And it's like, well, we've been working on this. I know you want to, it sounds like this is important to you to get through, and it keeps coming up. Would you like to try something different? Good. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And we dip in and it resolves the issue. So for me, it's almost all I do. I don't really take on individual coaching clients. I have way too many coach friends who are significantly more qualified and better at that. And so I'm a coach trainer, and we provide continuing ed credits for coaches, for therapists, for counselors, for board certified health and wellness coaches now. So we do a lot of continuing ed for coaches. But I would rather coaches who really love coaching to shine there, and staying the specialist on my side serves really well. But it fits into coaching programs. A lot of coaches have found it easier to include a RIM session or 2 or 3, even if they just outsource it to me or someone else, or learn it themselves. Because if you have to refer a client, then it feels like you're saying there's something special, this client needs some extra help, or there's something wrong with them. It gets awkward. You include it, everyone benefits from it. And you can private label it and name it something that is supporting what they're coming to you for. And the clients always love it, and it adds a lot of value to the program. So there's no particular time when you should use it or how to use it, because you're following the client. Whatever the client needs, the client gets.
Yeah, but you are a coach's coach, because and I know you know what that means, right? You're a coach's coach because you support us so thoroughly, and you teach us. And it's not just RIM. You teach us to be better coaches. So I love that about you, Michael. There's so much I love, including that shirt, by the way. It's awesome. Yeah, it's really good. And RIM really differs from talk therapy and other therapies, because I love the fact that you could focus on the trauma. You could focus and eliminate or extinguish the feelings that they had from the trauma, so people can move on. Would that be a right terminology? Extinguishing it?
Extinguish, I don't know. That feels a lot, it's kind of anti-fire. Dissolve it. I would say dissolve works for me. It because it does it on its own. We don't have to do anything to it. And RIM is not a therapy. It is very therapeutic. The therapists that I've trained in RIM will have been trained in EMDR and RRT and ART and the whole alphabet soup and internal family systems, IFS, all of that. And they come to love RIM. And I'm not trained in all of those things. No one is trained in all of them, but in the 140 plus therapists and coaches that I've trained, they're trained in over 100 modalities that I've had people compare with. And they all seem to find RIM as their favorite go-to, because it's the only one that they don't have to know what the issue is, and they don't have to know what the client needs, that they help the client tap into that resourcing from elsewhere, from inside, and they move faster and quicker and on the right issue. So, yeah.
How does that differ from somatic healing?
Well, so we blend some skills from somatic work, from somatic therapy, as RIM has roots there. It's the degree to which the client leads it. So we're not just body sensing to move into it and then ask, if I ask you a question of, well, what would that, lump in your throat want to say? Well, now I'm back to asking your thinking mind to provide an answer that it doesn't have access to the correct answer. It is subject to judgment, subject to being wrong. It's worried about that. It's thinking. And we've gone out of the body now into the thinking mind. It's like this is the challenge. As much as I love the art of powerful questioning, every coach's best question is going to the thinking mind that has so little access to the data.
Yeah.
So how do we ask the body? Because when you're asking, you're talking to the thinker.
Yeah.
And so the way we have to move into the perspective of the other, whether that's a person or into the perspective of the physical, tangible form we imagine, we have to move into it and speak as it, and everything changes. That's a simple shift from speaking, asking a coach, asking a client a question, to having them be in that embodied form that showed up and speak as it, and they always give a different answer.
Well, there's no judgment to that, because now it's no longer you.
That's right.
It's whatever that thing is, right? So that's moving through. I also love that, and I'm so impressed that University of Colorado did a lot of research and mapping, the brain, and talk about that a little bit, how you got involved with the university. And is that where Coco is?
No, that's Dr. Deb's world. Coco's at UVU in Utah. So you're so cutting edge, Lorianne. This is not even published research yet. So I'm sneaking a little drip out here of little bits that I'm hearing about. It was kind of a surprise. So they're mapping what's happening in the brain during RIM sessions, and that it's matching what's mapping during psilocybin research. So I think we will soon have published research demonstrating that we are actually creating psychedelic like experiences in the brain, just using imagination and just body sensing. So this is something you can do. It's a verbal process over the phone or on Zoom, and go on a psychedelic like journey where spontaneous things show up without the drug, without annihilating your thinker, but still always being in control.
Yeah.
And you can't do it wrong, and you get to be in charge. And you do this for an hour and a half, maybe. Where I've done a lot of ayahuasca journeys in Costa Rica, and it's 3 to 5 hours, and very much not in control of anything, or feeling that way, and it can be very scary. And I finally got to be not scared, but RIM is a whole lot easier and accessible.
Yeah. So that drug element of being in the psychedelics is not appealing to me, because that makes me get out of that comfort zone of being in control, even though I know I'm not. Whereas this is very, it's a controlled, natural, calm. I'm going to use the term safe. I feel safe, but I also know that it's not something else influencing. And so I love that Dr. Deb mentioned the university last October, I think, when I saw her, and she said they were starting to do that. So it's so exciting. I'm so excited that we're cutting edge. But how that really helps in healing trauma, the RIM is helping, and how it's so different. I'm talk therapy has its place, but to me, I was always said, every time you bring something up, you give it life and vibration again. So by doing that is not necessarily a positive thing, and you just keep in that little wheel, that hamster wheel. Whereas what you're doing is you're going in, you're visiting it, and you're making choices of what we want to do with this. Okay, now I know why I feel the way I do, why I have these belief systems that usually happen between 2 and I think it's 9. That's when that usually happens in us. We have these belief systems that we developed, and we have to go back in there and change those beliefs. We have the option of changing those beliefs so that we can move forward and no longer believe those beliefs, which are just thoughts we keep thinking over and over again, right? That's the definition. That's right. So I love the process, and it's just so rewarding. And I felt lighter, if that makes sense, when I was done with it. I felt lighter. The most
common response is to feel they freer and lighter are the 2 common words that I get more than anything else at the end of the session.
And the other one was unstoppable. Like fear was gone. There was no fear. It was like, all right, I can do this. No problem. I felt like I had a tribe behind me too, that I know that I could always go back in and revisit, because I knew how effective it was. What else would benefit the form of RIM? What else?
What else would benefit?
From RIM. What other things? So we got trauma. We have emotional.
I think the being open to. I think loving what is. I'd say loving what is. So you've had the amazing benefit of being in workshops with me and seeing me facilitate and train and all of that, and facilitating RIM sessions. Now I'm also a human being. So what my working world doesn't see me getting to be human. Now I have a lot of siblings who know me differently, and they can't even fathom what I do for a living. I have no idea.
I used to say that to my brother. He was a colonel in the Air Force, and he would go scramble up, fly up, and he flew one of the test people for the stealth bomber. And I was like, wait, you're protecting us? I'm not feeling very comfortable. So I get that, but you're very human when you teach those. So I don't know if we haven't tapped into it, but maybe let's get the silly fun side.
Right. Well, there's the silly fun side, and then there's the cranky, impatient, frustrated side, and all of that that we all get to be too, right? Sure. And I think
the ugly of everybody, though, right? We all have that.
Of course. And so one of the journeys I started about a little over a year ago, I started working on this idea and carrying this mantra in my head about loving what is, and I had a lot of fear around, I don't want to be the next Adyashanti, or I don't want to be the next Byron Katie. I don't know how to do that. I want to be able to function through my life the way, and so I want to learn to love what is, or move toward that. As I think I had a bit of fear of hesitancy around saying that I just want to love what is, because that would be I've learned that I end up getting everything I want. So we have to be very careful what we say out loud. And would that be okay to learn to actually love what is? It's huge. It's massive. And then I realized, can I learn to love suffering? Because that's what is a lot of times. Or at least what we call suffering, but that would be our judging the suffering to decide that that's suffering. Who am I to say that that's suffering? I've already learned that, when I see people, what most people call suffering, I have learned that that's not suffering, that's healing.
Yes. Well, anything that has been challenging in our lives end up being a resource for us in what we do. I don't know.
Yes.
But for what we've gone through in our past gave us the strength to do what we do today becomes the gem of who we are today.
Yes. And I think the day that I was doing that, I had been at a retreat center for a week, and I was doing, night after night of doing ayahuasca journeys and arguing with my friend, the fire. And I hadn't seen any news in a couple of weeks. And the news that I had heard about 1,000 people died in some natural disaster in Afghanistan. I'm thinking that level of suffering. Well, cheer up, folks. You could use that to your advantage to help propel your career. It does not happen that way. How do we love that suffering? So I think anything is possible when we go inside and access the infinite resourcing we have available. And that's the power of what we can do.
I think it reminds us to really appreciate and have gratitude for where we are and what we have.
Yeah.
So when you see massive suffering like that, it also equalized where we are. I know getting through my transition, it was remembering that no matter what I was feeling, and I had to surrender to it, but remembering that there are other people out there with far worse situations than what I was going through, even though mine was massively challenging as well.
Yes.
There are other people suffering worse. And that's what got me up in the morning. That's what made me get up and it's like, suck it up, princess, let's go. And I mean that with love to myself, but it was like, come on, you have to do this. There's a purpose. There's a reason you have to go do this. Real quick, what types of retreats are you planning to host this coming year?
Another RIM training retreat to teach the RIM technique to others who want to do it. I'll be doing that. A couple of writings retreats. A couple of yoga retreat. I've got I'm partnering with someone to do a yoga, emotional healing yoga retreat for gay men over 50. I have a partner who has 25 published romance novels to help fiction writers, and so all kinds of fun things in there. So let's stay in touch, and anybody that's excited about any of this can find me and connect with me, email me.
MichaelJKline.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where can they email you, Michael?
Mike at MichaelJKline.com.
And it's Kline. All the information will be below this radio show and podcast. And so you can find it below. So please reach out to Michael. He is amazing. Try at least one RIM session if you get a chance. It really is life-changing. And you're going to see, you don't need a lot of them, a couple of sessions, and you're on your way to your next step if you so choose. So Michael, you are a prince. Wonderful. I love what you do. Thank you for doing what you do in the world. We appreciate the fact that you put yourself there and unabatedly share what your knowledge is with this. So thank you for everything that you do. And thank you for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Lorianne.
My pleasure. And thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I hope we earned the privilege of your time. And if you're looking for us, look for us next Saturday, same time, same bat channel, for those who get that reference. Until next time, I am Lorianne. Play a higher role, serve a higher purpose, show up for you, and show up big. Have a great day. Thanks a lot, Michael.